All right, awesome. We're going to get going. It's 11:03. We got about 115 people on. People that can't make it or people that can't stay till the end, we will send out a recording of this at the end. So today we are talking about mastering your buyer consultation. I'm going to share with you guys how we are signing 95% or more of the buyers that we meet, the exact process that has added dozens of transactions to our team's pipeline each year. And if you commit to implementing this proven process, you're going to have better educated clients, you're going to have less client fallout, and you're going to have agents that work less and sell more. Your agents can be drastically less frustrated when they're following this process. Yes, it's a tough market. There's still going to be frustrations going on. But when you follow and commit to this process, now more than ever, you're going to have clients that understand what to expect with buying a home. And you're going to have agents that feel like they're not just running around opening doors. So the whole goal out of this is that the client has a better experience. The agent doesn't have to work as hard. There's process brought to the journey of buying a house, and everyone is on the same page. I want to elevate you guys, just like we've done with our team, to be more than just a door opener. I see people with Zillow and Realtor.com leads. They just run out and go show people a house, and they never really formalize that relationship or never really get on the same page on if they're going to be that person's agent or not. So jumping into things. Who am I? My name is Mike Novak. For those that don't know me, my wife and I own a real estate team just north of Seattle in a town called Everett. We've got 3 young kids. We've been married for, since 2008 now. It's been quite a while. We've got 3 kids. Phoebe is 6, Teo is 10, and Maya is 12. We spend a lot of time traveling together. There's a picture of the kids and us down in the Dominican Republic last year. There's a picture of Rachel and I in Switzerland last year as well. So we try to get out and really enjoy life. I'm also kind of a bit of a meathead. I like to go to the gym. I like to work out. To me, fitness is kind of the foundation of everything I do. I feel like getting in the gym, for an hour and a half a day really gets my mind into a great spot where I can come into work and just totally crush it. I'm also a producing agent. I'm not just the team lead. So I'm not just sitting back and coaching my team on theory or how to do things that I'm not practicing myself. I am a producing agent. I help a lot of buyers. I just focus on the buyer side of our business. I don't work with sellers at all. There's other agents in our team that do, like my wife. But for me, I just focus on buyers, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're also part of Real Brokerage, which is the cloud-based brokerage that we joined last year. If you're curious about Real, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to fill you in on why we made that move. So let's jump into the buyer consultation itself. Why the heck do we do these consultations? I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. The first reason that we do this is so that we set really clear expectations with the client on what the process is going to look like to buy a home. If you don't take the time to sit down with the buyer and tell them what that roadmap looks like from start to finish, then they're left to just guessing on what that could be. So it's your job as the agent to define what that process looks like, and then to educate them and give them a lay of the land so they know what to expect. It's also important to be on the same page with strategy. Now more than ever, the offer variables that you think about and the offer strategy you apply can have a huge impact on whether your client gets their offer accepted or not. Like we were talking about before we started the webinar today, most of us are in very low inventory markets right now, and we're seeing 10, 15, even 20 offers sometimes. So putting the strategy into how you're going to actually have your offer stand out is super important right now. And you have to address those variables up front with your client. A client that bought a home 10 years ago has no relevancy to what it's going to take to win a home today. So getting on the same page with strategy is super upfront, or super important. The other thing we do is we like to invest into the relationship up front. So agreeing to work with somebody, agreeing to represent them as an agent is a big commitment. You're going to invest a lot of your time, and we like to invest a lot of that time up front. So instead of just running around showing the person homes, we like to spend an hour or so with that person, sitting down with them face to face and getting to know this person better and really investing in that relationship up front. We also want to establish ourselves as the professional. If we don't take the time to define the process, articulate it in very clear terms for our client, and then manage that process, then we're just really succumbing the control and giving that up to the client. Like whatever they think should be done to buy a home is what's going to occur during the transaction, instead of you as the professional saying, hey, this is the process. This is what it's going to take to buy a home in this market. This is how we're going to do things. When you do it that way, with that confidence, and you bring that kind of value to your buyer consultation, you are going to have a much smoother transaction. The client's going to follow exactly what you asked them to do. The other thing we do is we do a really deep dive into what this person needs in their property. We spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about this in the buyer consultation, and we talk about what do they need in the property itself, what do they need in the home, what do they want to avoid? And we kind of break things down into a couple categories. We break them down to the must-haves, which is the non-negotiable features. Like maybe the person has to have 3 bedrooms. If it doesn't have 3 bedrooms, they're not interested in that house. That would be a must-have. And then the other category would be the nice-to-haves. Nice-to-haves could be, hey, if it's got a fenced yard, that would be awesome. But if it doesn't have a fenced yard, it's not a deal killer, and I will still go take a look at it. So that's kind of the big parts of the buyer consultation. I'm going to do a much deeper dive into all of this here on today's webinar. If you've got questions, go throw them up in the chat box and we will hit them at the end, I promise. We have a ton of ground to cover today, so I'm going to wait till the end just to make sure we've gone through everything that I want to make sure we hit today. The other big important thing with the buyer consultation is to formalize the relationship. And for some reason, when I got into this industry in 2017, I was shocked that on the listing side, there was this process where agents would be really good about going out to meet with people. They'd sit down, walk them through how much their home is worth, what the process would be to sell their home, and kind of set expectations there. Then they would sign a listing agreement to work with this person. They'd formalize the relationship in writing that they're going to be their agent. I do the same thing on the buy side. If I don't have a buyer agency agreement, I am not working with that person. For some reason, in real estate, this makes people super uncomfortable. And I'll talk with you a little bit about why I think that is, and we can kind of address that head on. But on our team, we do use buyer agency agreements, and we ask people to make the same commitment to us that we're going to make to them. And we formalize that right then and there initially before we start showing them homes in the buyer consultation at the end. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that today. And there's a close I use that is very, very successful. I've had agents come out, they fly out, train with our team. Ron's come out, Chubbs has come out, and they train with our team, and they see these consultations in person. They see the close, and it's just like, wow, okay, it's not that intimidating to ask somebody just to be committed to you if you're going to commit to them. It's very simple, actually. So the most common mistake, there's 2 that I see with agents on buyer consultations. The first, and this is kind of obvious, the biggest mistake that agents make is they don't do buyer consultations. They just are door openers. They go open doors for people as people reach out to them and say they want to go look at a house. So that's the biggest mistake I see. And then for agents that are doing buyer consultations, props to you. That's awesome that you're doing that. But I see a lot of agents skip that step when it comes down to their PCSOI. PCSOI stands for past clients and sphere of influence. And it's super important with your family, friends, and your sphere that you still are the professional that we talked about earlier. You're not just their friend at that moment. You're shifting from their friend to the professional. And that means you're taking the time to put them through the same process you would put any one of your other clients through. You're going to sit down with them. You're going to walk them through the process. You're going to set very clear expectations. And they're going to officially hire and make a commitment to work with you. You do not want to skip this step with your sphere. I've seen agents on our team make this mistake, and they're just like, hey, it's my buddy, it's fine, it's not a big deal. And it is a big deal, actually. That person can't be viewing you as a friend at that moment. They have to view you through the lens of a professional. If they think you're just their friend during the transaction, they're not getting their money's worth out of the relationship that they have with you. You're literally devaluing that professional relationship because that person is just viewing you as the friend. So it's your job to make that shift and to become their agent, put that agent hat on for a minute and kind of push the friendship aside until you've done your job as the professional. So I mentioned that most agents don't do consultations. I talk to and I mentor a lot of agents, and for some strange reason, a lot of them don't do consultations. So it got me thinking one day, why don't they do consultations? And the first and biggest reason is I think that people are truly okay with giving up the process. Like they just think that showing homes is the best way to serve a client. Hey, they'll reach out to me, send me a home, and I'll go show them that property. And that's somehow taking care of clients. That is not taking care of clients. That's just being a door opener. You're not elevating yourself as the professional when you do that. I also think some agents are hesitant to invest a lot of time into the client up front because they don't know if the person's going to be serious. Well, the best way to know if they're serious is to sit down with them for 20 or 30 minutes and unpack the process and get to know them better and figure out if they're a viable buyer and if you guys are on the same page with what it's going to take to buy a home. I think there's also a big lack of confidence on the buy side that doesn't exist on the listing side. On the listing side, everyone expects, it's kind of standardized in our industry, that they should go on a listing appointment, they should sign the listing. But on the buy side, there is no expectation for that for some reason. Like agents think that they don't have to do it. They don't think that it's normal to do it. And it's your responsibility to make it normal. I got to tell you that. You have to have the confidence that you can bring a ton of value to your clients when you sit down with them and you actually walk them through this process. If you do this, you are serving your client at the absolute highest level. I do not believe you're looking out for your client's best interest if you just are showing them properties and you haven't taken the time to pour into that relationship up front and to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing and how they're going to do it. The last and final thing is I think that agents are really afraid of commitment. Like they're afraid to just ask a person point blank, do you want me to be your agent? Do you want me to help you find a home? What is so intimidating about that? Like just literally look the person in the eyes and ask them that question. More often than not, if you've brought a lot of value to that conversation up till then, that person's going to say, absolutely, of course I want to be. And most people, most clients don't know that it's not normal to sign a buyer agency. Remember that most agents don't do it. We only know that because we network with other agents and they tell us they don't do it. In our world, it's completely normal to sit down and do a buyer consultation, to sign a buyer agency agreement. And if you tell the clients that's the next step, they believe you that that is the next step because that's your process. I've literally had dozens of people that I talked to on the phone and they told me, hey, you know, I've bought a home multiple times. I don't need a buyer consultation. I know what that process looks like. And they often use this phrase. They say, Mike, this isn't my first rodeo. And whenever I hear that, I always get really alarmed because those are the people I'm going to have headaches and problems with when I actually get them under contract. And I always will kind of flip that around. Somebody says that to me, and I'll say, okay, great, Bob. I can totally understand that you've bought and sold 17 homes over the last 10 years. That is awesome. With all that experience, I'm sure you understand the importance of proper planning and preparation. So I really want to sit down with you and make sure we're on the same page with exactly what we're looking for before we start running around wasting your time just looking at houses that you might not be interested in. Those people that are telling you they've done this multiple times, they're going to be your biggest headaches if you don't take the time to sit down and go over things with them. More often than not, when I actually get these people face to face, they don't know what earnest money is. Like they don't know the basics about buying a house, which is absolutely crazy to me. But again, it's your job as a professional to not let them get by without doing that because they simply don't think that they need it and need to reaffirm why it's important to do it. That's your job as the professional. So let's back it up a little bit and go to the part where we're actually setting the buyer consultation, because the conversation on the phone or the conversation over text message has a massive impact on whether that appointment is going to show up and also if there is quality to that appointment. When you have a lead come into your system, that lead could have come from a multitude of different sources. If it's like a Zillow lead or it's a realtor.com lead, those are what we call property inquiry or portal leads. So these people are requesting specific information on a property, and they generally want to go look at that home or have questions about that property. Those are the hardest people to set buyer consultations with. And I'm going to give you a script that will help you kind of shift past that initial conversation about the house and really start to discover what the person's motivation is. On the flip side of that, if you're using pay-per-click like Google and Bing and things like that, leads that take 12 to 18 months to convert to an appointment, those leads, it really makes sense to them to do a buyer consultation because like it's logical for them because they're not just inquiring on a property. You're making all these follow-up calls and text messages and you're continuing to progress that conversation, and you're not waiting for them to request specific information on a home. You're just nurturing the relationship and bringing value to it to the point where it makes sense for the next step to be where they actually want to meet with you and do a buyer consultation. So how do you handle these portal leads, the Zillows and the realtor.coms? Because these are the low-hanging fruit, as Eric Hatch calls them. These are leads that are ready to go right now if you can just get them face-to-face and get them to commit to working with you. So usually these calls look something like this. Hey, yeah, it's Mike Novak from the Novak real estate team. Got your request from Zillow. It sounds like you've got questions on 123 Main Street. Can I answer any of those questions for you? That is such a problematic intro to your call. That is a yes or no question, and it's not actually shifting past the home to connect with the person. Robbie T from Hatch Coaching talks about this, and he teaches it. He's screamed from the mountaintops about this for years, about how important it is to shift your conversations immediately and as fast as possible away from the property to the person, and to really unpack that person's motivation and why they want to buy a home. Why does this matter to you? What are your goals? What's your current living situation? What have you been doing to prepare yourself to buy a home? So here's the intro that we use to kind of shift that a little bit. Hey, Bob, it's Mike Novak from the Novak real estate team. Just got your request on 123 Main Street off of Zillow. I wanted to reach out to you right away and see if you're thinking about making a move now or in the near future. That is not necessarily a yes or no question, because they're going to say, well, yeah, I'm thinking about it, but I really want to go see 123 Main Street. And then we'll say, okay, awesome. Let me pull up 123 Main Street. While I'm pulling up that home, tell me, Bob, what's got you thinking about wanting to make a move? Again, I'm coming back to motivation. Why is this important to you? And this is really, really important to take those property inquiries and take them from just showing a house to building a connection with that person. When you can get past that initial property inquiry type conversation and really start to connect with them, you're going to have a better outcome, and that person's going to want to sit down with you and do a buyer consultation. But if you keep it house specific, it's going to be a miss. You're going to basically set up a go show appointment. We're going to show them the house, and then who knows where it goes from there. We tested this story to tell you, like about a year and a half ago, I questioned the buyer consultation process because we were struggling to get people under contract with the loan and trying to just, is this really the best thing for the client? And so I started tracking our data. I tracked it for about 6 months, and I tracked what was the difference on closing if we did a go and show, meaning we showed the home and then we tried to get them under contract, versus if we did a buyer consultation, how often we get them under contract. On the go and show, we only got about 30% of our go and shows under contract, and the rest just kind of evaporated into the mist of our database, if you will. If we did a buyer consultation, the rate was more than double. It went from about 30% to about 68%. So more than double the amount of closings just by committing to that process. So it is so important to be really clear on how to do this. It's important to role play this so that it's just an automatic muscle, kind of memory thing when you get on the phone. You're not having to think about what to say. You're just easily taking that dung shot that you've practiced 1,000 times in your role plays, and it's super easy to unpack that person's motivation. After we set the consultation, we will do a couple of things. We've kind of developed this process with Robbie where there's a certain kind of protocol that we follow after the appointment is set. And if we ever deviate from this or we skip a step, I've noticed that the stickability of the appointment deteriorates very quickly, and that person is much less likely to show up. So after we set the appointment, the first thing we do is we send what we call the buyer consultation appointment set email. And that email, it explains who we are. It gives them a link to our social proof site, which for us is meetthenovaks.com. It's got all of our accolades. It's kind of a brand site. It's got our Zillow reviews, things like that. We do send them a direct link to our Zillow reviews as well. We send them an introduction to our lender that we like working with and that can help them. And then we confirm the day, date, time as well. So that's super important. And we set that expectation on the phone. I'm going to send you a few emails after we get off this call. The first one's going to be a calendar confirmation. The second one will be an email with some more information about us. Just look for those emails. If you don't see them, give me a call back. The second thing we do is we do a text confirmation. We just confirm via text, hey, Bob, great to talk to you today. I look forward to seeing you Monday at 3:00, Mike, and just, again, reaffirm that day, date, time. If the ISA sets the appointment, this is when they do a handoff text. This is basically the ISA handing the appointment now off to the agent to drive. And at that point, the ISA sends a text message in a group format to the agent, the client, and themselves. And they just say, hey, Bob, great to talk to you today. Mike Novak's looking forward to meeting you tomorrow at 3:00. Here's his direct phone number in case you need anything between now and then. Jason. Very simple handoff text. And at that point, now the agent is in charge of running with that lead. The other thing we do is we use a tool called Calendly. Calendly is kind of calendar automation tool. It's very helpful. I'm a big time blocker. Like I like to make specific parts of my schedule available for buyer consultations. And I don't want to have to go into my calendar and try to figure out when I'm available. And I also don't want my ISAs to have to try to go into my calendar and figure out when I'm available. So there's a couple of very specific blocks of time, and I build those blocks out in Calendly. And those are the times that people can book me for my buyer consultations. For me, I like doing them between 3 and 6 p.m., 2 or 3 nights a week, and then every other Saturday from 9 to 12. I just like to have a very specific time that I'm available. And I know that people will generally go to the time that I have, not the time that they want, as long as it's organized very logically. So I love Calendly for that. Calendly also sends out text reminders as well for the appointment, which is really helpful. We've also discovered that it's super important to set the buyer consultation for as soon as possible. If you're setting a buyer consultation for 2 weeks out from now, the likelihood of that appointment actually occurring goes down dramatically. So we try to do it within 5 days or less, and same day or next day is always going to be the best thing. So if it's 5 days away from now, you really need to make sure that you stay in contact with that person. Like, don't just have radio silence from when you set the appointment to when you're going to meet with them. Follow up with them, check in with them halfway through when you set the appointment to when it's going to occur. see how they're doing, making sure they're getting your listing alerts. Maybe send them a few listings and see if they'd like to go take a look at those listings after the buyer consultation. Just bring them a ton of value so they can see that you're really on top of it. You're really going to work hard for them, and it really sets the tone for the buyer consultation. So the last thing I want to share with you regarding setting the buyer consultations is the perfect close. I'm not a big fan of scripting. Like, I like to have just a normal human to human conversation with people, but there's a couple of points in a phone call where I think having a very specific script can be helpful. And those points are the intro, which I shared with you earlier. And then the other part is the close. So the close I have practiced for years. I've set literally a couple thousand appointments using this close. I teach it to our ISAs. I teach it to our agents as well. And it just works for some reason. Like, if it works, I just kind of run with it. And I've used it for years, and it's been great for us. So what does that close look like? It looks like this. All right, Bob, the next step is for us to meet for 20 to 30 minutes so I can walk you through the home buying process from start to finish, get you up to speed on what is happening in our market, and do a really deep dive into exactly what you need in your next home. From there, my team and I will get out there and go find it for you. How's today at 4 or tomorrow at 6 for that meeting? So there's a couple of things that this close accomplishes. It sets clear expectations on what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're going to accomplish 3 big things. We're going to make sure you know exactly what to expect with buying a home. So we're going to give you a lay of the land. We're going to get you up to speed on what's happening in the market, and we're going to unpack what you need in the home, what is important to you. And then from there, we're going to go find it for you. There's an action step there. So there's 3 things, and there's an action step at the end. And then I don't ask the person, how does that sound? How does it sound as a passive close? That's crap. Don't use that. How's today at 4, tomorrow at 6? It's option A or it's option B. There's not a yes or no question going on here. It's which one of these is best for you. If neither one of those work, then they'll tell you when they are available. But go to your close with confidence. Don't just kind of brush at it, like run head on into that wall and just, use the verbatim close I just shared with you, see if it works for you, and then give them 2 time slots and see which one is best for them. So what we've seen, we track our data super closely. Anyone that works with me or that's mentored by me or that's in our masterminds knows that I love data, because when I track data, I can make better decisions. Instead of just guessing what's going on in our business, if I see the data, I can know what's going on. I can change things and see how that affects the different ratios that we have going on. So I've seen that a 70% set to met ratio is pretty good. We have agents on our team that are up into the 81% range, and we have other people when they're newer that are in the 40 to 50% range, but 70% is pretty good. If you're coming in less than 70% on your set to met ratio, then you need to look at a couple of things. There's some coaching opportunities that could exist there. You have to ask yourself, are you bringing enough value to the call? Does the person actually want the appointment? Like, is it something that you're just setting to check a box and to get the appointment on your tracker? Or is it something that actually makes sense for this person to do? Is this person really qualified to meet? Would they be a better nurture lead? Like, are they really 6 to 9 months out and I'm forcing the appointment now? If that's occurring, you're going to have less people show up as well. And then, just what was the confidence on the call? People want to work with confident agents. And if you come off with a ton of confidence and bring a lot of value to that call, then that person is going to show up more often. If you're passive, if you don't seem like you know what you're doing, if you don't know your market, all of those things result in drop off from when the person said, yes, I'll meet with you, to them actually showing up. So let's break down the overview of a successful buyer consultation. What should that look like from a timing perspective? So minutes 0 through 10, I really try to focus this on connecting with the person. This is totally unscripted time. What I want to do is I just want to understand their story. Who are you? What do you do for a living? Tell me about your family, things like that. What's their current living situation as well? I want to make sure I know everything that is going on with this person. When is their lease up? Do they have a property they need to sell? We're going to reaffirm a lot of the details that we talked about in the initial call as well. Minutes 10 through 35, we're going to dive into the buyer's guide. Today, I'm going to share with you guys a couple of pages from our buyer's guide, and I'm going to give you the whole roadmap that I use to explain it to buyers. I'm going to script that through with you so you can hear my language patterns, and then you can rip off and duplicate that roadmap. Minutes 35 through 40 is really just kind of wrapping up that consultation. Like, you're going to sign the person, make a commitment to work together, and you just kind of reaffirm the next steps, which I'll share with you today. So that's kind of the overview of how a good buyer consultation should go. It can definitely go longer or shorter than that. It tends to go longer with high I's that want to talk a lot. And it tends to go shorter with high S's or high D's that just, they're not really engaging a ton with you. They're just kind of absorbing and listening, or a high D may even cut you off and try to take control when you have to grab it back from them. Those are always my favorite. So on the connection side of things, again, this is totally unscripted. This is just a human to human conversation. I'm looking at the person's body language. I'm trying to figure out what their disc is. I should have already tried to identify that on the phone call, but I want to mirror and match this person's personality so that they feel like they're being heard and valued. I want to make sure that I'm also kind of taking control of the conversation. I'm not going to let this person dictate to me how this meeting is going to go down. Again, I'm the professional. I've got the agenda that we need to make sure we get through. So this is going to be a successful meeting that's productive, that accomplishes your goals. I'm going to keep this meeting on track. And I've had people that try to rip control out of my hands on these meetings, and I will very firmly grab it back and keep going right back to my process and to my timeline and to the buyer's guide. But you have to be willing to do that. You can't let somebody just run off on a tangent and take control of your meeting. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to reaffirm and we're going to name the goals for the day. And if you remember that from when we set the appointment, those are a couple things. First and foremost, we're going to go over the process of buying a home so you know what to expect. We're going to make sure that you're up to speed on what's happening on the market. And then we're going to do a deep dive in exactly what you need in a property. I'm also going to touch on different things that were talked about in the phone call. If the ISA set the appointment, I'm going to reaffirm those details that he collected that shows that we're listening, we're on the same page, that we communicate effectively. I'm not asking them the same questions that he asked them. I'm just reaffirming what they already told him. So that makes the communication really smooth, and it shows that we're on the same page. But I'm going to reaffirm things like what they said they wanted in the property. I'm going to reaffirm things like their current living situation, their lease end date, things like that. This should take about 10 minutes, and it kind of winds its natural course down as it's time to move on. Like you can feel in the room when it's time to move because the person's just kind of stopped talking. Like you've asked a lot of questions and you've kind of covered a lot of these topics we're covering right now. And then the person's just kind of quiet and sitting there. And that's when you're like, okay, now let's go ahead and jump into the home buying process. And that's when we get into our buyer's guide. So we took the time, I wrote our buyer's guide about 5 years ago. And some of the elite agents that have been on our team for a long time have helped improve and optimize it. And it's always going to be a work in progress. This is the most important page from the buyer's guide. And you can feel free to rip off and duplicate this, but I would really encourage you to actually write your own buyer's guide. Like don't just download something off of your brokerage's site or off the internet that just seems like a good buyer's guide. Like really take the time to write something out that's unique to your process, to your brand, and how you want to do things. So I think I probably spent 25 hours writing our guide initially, and then we got it off to a graphic designer. And then after that, we've continued to enhance it and improve it over the years. And we also shifted a little bit based on what's going on in the market because tactics change and strategies change as well. So as we go through this buyer guide, it's 37 pages long, but I only touch on about 7 pages. And I'm going to give them a little bit of background on our team. I'll just say, my name is Mike Novak. I'm going to be your real estate agent. The 2 people you're going to work with really closely through this process will be me as your agent, then my showing partner, Destiny. There's 2 of us available to you so that we can show you homes 7 days a week from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. So I just kind of frame and introduce my showing partner right then and there. And I frame it from the position of value to the client. I want you to see homes as fast as possible, regardless of my schedule. So I go ahead and name who the partner is going to be. And I set the expectation that we're both there for that person. So I'm going to go ahead and jump through this timeline of buying a home so you can hear it exactly as I explain it to a buyer. And I'll go ahead and add a few notes in as we go, just to make sure that you're emphasizing things right. So I will say, Bob, this is the high level view of buying a home. I break the process down into a 4-phase approach. The first phase is what I call the preparation phase. And that's really what we're doing today. The second phase is the home search phase. We're out actively looking for properties. The third phase is the offering phase. We're putting offers in on homes. And the fourth and final phase is what I call contract to close. That's basically what happens when you get your offer accepted to when you get keys in possession of the home. So jumping into phase 1, the first step, we like to meet our clients face to face just to get to know you better and make sure we're going to be a good fit to work with you. When I say that, it sounds like this is a 2-way decision. Like I'm not just automatically going to work with you. I will have to want to work with you. We both have to make the decision on that. We're going to review the home buying process from start to finish so you know what to expect with buying a home. Buying a home can be very fun or it can be very stressful, and the difference comes down to your planning and preparation. So as your agent, it's my job to make sure you know what to expect before it's going to occur buying a home. We don't want any surprises. We're going to also identify the must-haves and the locations. The locations are obviously where you want to have your home located at and that you're open to. And then the must-haves are the non-negotiable features where if the home didn't have that feature, you would not be interested in it. So let's go ahead and talk more about what is important to you in the property and the locations. And then we'll have usually typically about a 5-minute conversation at that point about those things. And we'll separate things between must-haves and nice-to-haves and get very granular on it. And sometimes this is a conversation where the husband and wife are not necessarily on the same page, where they haven't had this conversation yet. And you may be in the position of trying to kind of bring them together and mediate. What does he say is important to him? What's important to her? And how do we bring this together and make sure it's still going to be realistic at the price that they want to achieve? So that's that. The next step, we're going to sign a buyer agency agreement between you and myself. That allows me to be your agent and to represent you, to show you homes and also write offers on your behalf. And then the next step from there is to get pre-approved for your mortgage. We have a really good relationship with Premier Mortgage. They're in our same office building here. They're really great guys. I will connect you with them and see if they could be a good fit to help you with your mortgage. Do you have any questions on phase one? And it's really important you stop after each phase and ask if they have any questions. And it's most important you ask that question after phase one, because if the person has any hesitation to the buyer agency agreement, more often than not, they will name it right there if it's going to be a problem. And you can just kind of talk through it and address that objection right then and there. And you want to do that. You don't want to wait till the end. You want to go ahead and set the expectation that, hey, we're going to do this today. You don't want to spring it on the person at the end and say, all right, here's the paperwork to sign. We're naming it up front that we're going to sign this agreement, that I'm going to be your agent, that we're going to be committed to each other. So it's important to name that. It's very, very important to set that expectation. Moving on to phase two, the home search phase, a big part of Destiny's and my job is to proactively go on the hunt for new homes for you. We're not going to just sit back and wait for you to send us new listings that you want to go take a look at. So we will set you up on our website, which is connected directly to the MLS, and that's where all new listings get put. So it's not just our team or our brokerage's listings, but it's every listing that's for sale in the marketplace, and it's updated every 15 minutes. So it's very current information. Have you been using Zillow or Realtor.com by chance? Okay, great. I want to go ahead and get you off those sites. They're not updated nearly as quickly. And when you request information on those properties, it goes to a random real estate agent, not to me. I want to make sure that you're seeing homes that are actually available. I want to make sure that when you inquire on a home, it goes directly to me as your agent. And then I'll get them set up on our site. Sometimes people want to use the Redfin app, and if they do, then I say that's great. Just go ahead and send us over a screenshot of that property if you're interested in it. From there, I will address that we want to get out and tour homes with you as fast as you're available to go do that. There's 2 of us available, so it is never an inconvenience for us to go show you a home. If a home comes on, no matter where you see it, go ahead and text us in the group chat that I'll start, and Destiny or I'll get out there and show you the home the same day that you're available. And then from there, it's really important to us that you fall in love with the home. Buying a home is a huge financial decision. And the last thing I want to do is sell you a home that you call me a year from now and you say, Mike, I hate my house. I hate my neighborhood. Get me out of here. I want you to love the home. And what I've discovered is that when you're touring properties, you can feel in your gut and your heart when it's the right one. And if you don't feel that way, I don't want you to offer on the home. I want you to keep going until both you and your spouse have that overwhelming feeling in your gut and your heart. When you say this, it totally takes down the sales walls. All of a sudden, people realize that you're not just there to grab a commission check. There's no commission breath going on. You're out for their best interest, which I know you are, and I know that I am as well. We'll go as long as it takes until we find the person, the home they truly do love. It's super important to our team that we find the person that right home. So I'm very clear about that. And if you skip that step, then you're going to still come across as a salesperson that's putting yourself before the person, which I know none of you want to do. Then I'll just ask, is there any other questions on phase two? And typically they will say no, because we've kind of talked about it as we go. Then from there, we jump on to phase three. When we find a home that you love, I'll of course be the person that writes the offer for you. I'm not going to just pull a number out of thin air and say, hey, let's offer $10,000 off this house. It sounds like a nice rounded number. Instead, I'm going to pull up comparable sales, homes that are close in proximity to the home that you like, that have closed recently. I'll show you what they were listed at and what they actually sold at as well. I'll talk to the listing agent, see if they have any offers in hand, and also how competitive they think it might be on the home. And so I kind of like frame the conversation, that we're not just going to throw out numbers on the amount we offer on a property. What I've seen is that, especially in slower moving markets, people want to just ask for a rounded discount, like, hey, I want $10,000 or $20,000 off this house. And I think it's important you address that is not really a strategy to buy a home. Like, you need to use data to make this decision. And I will typically also share with people in phase three what the list price to sale price ratio is in our county. So I'll use a language pattern like this. Bob, in our market right now, the average list price to sale price ratio is 106.4%, meaning homes are selling for an average of 6.4% more than what they are listed for. So if you offer less than list price, you simply won't get your offer accepted. We need to have a strategy on how we're going to escalate above list price and make your offer stand out. And that's when I'll typically talk about different strategies between using an escalation addendum with the cap and the increment, or also the option of just putting out their highest and best offer and kind of the pros and cons of each of those options. I will also set expectations in phase 3 that it is not uncommon to offer 3, 4, even 5 times in our market before you win a house. It's frustrating for you as a buyer. It's defeating because you're putting out this great offer and you're not getting it accepted, but you have to just keep going. I'll also name that it's a lot more work for us, because it is. You guys know this if you're in this market right now that's similar to ours. We're doing the work we're used to doing once, 4 or 5 times. It's okay to name that so that the person feels like you're in this together. It's going to be brutal, but we're going to get through this together. As long as you just keep going, keep following my offer guidance, you will eventually get one of your offers accepted. This is why we're telling people right now, if you want to buy a home, you need to start that process 6 months ahead of time. You can't get in a home in 2 months unless the stars just perfectly align. So we're really setting those expectations to people on the phone. We will tell people in phase 3 that, we're seeing 5, 10, 15, even 20 offers on some houses. And it sounds obvious, but when there's 20 offers on a home, 19 people don't get that house. So we just kind of name that right then and there, again, to set expectations. But then we say, if we get our offer accepted, then at that point, we've got mutual acceptance and we move on to phase 4. Phase 4 is contract to close. Once you get your offer accepted, then our team's closing coordinator will reach out to you and she'll help you coordinate your earnest money. Earnest money is like a deposit when you're buying a house. It's not an additional cost. It gets credited towards your down payment or your closing costs. We have 2 business days in our market to get that money deposited. So we just want to make sure they've got quick access to those funds. At that point, we would schedule the home inspection. In our current market right now, home inspections don't really exist for buyers. So we share with them a few different strategies they can use, like a pre-inspection, a seller procured inspection, the upsides and downsides to waiving an inspection, and then also waiving an inspection with getting a home warranty. We kind of gauge their risk tolerance level at that point. From there, we discuss an appraisal and what that looks like. And then from there, we get the final approval from the underwriter. Then we like to go back and do a final walkthrough. We just want to go back to the home one more time and make sure everything looks good before any money changes hands. We'll make sure the appliances are still there, the home is clean, so it's actually moved out, things like that. Just because on closing day, once money changes hands, it's really hard to get the seller or the listing agent to go back and fix the problem. So if there's an issue, we want to know about it before that occurs. And that's why we do a walkthrough. At that point, you'll sign the loan documents, just the final step in the process. The escrow company will call you and take care of that. That's how things are done in Washington. You don't actually own the home when you sign. It's just the final step in the journey. And then from there, you actually get keys on closing day. So this is our team's proven process. This doesn't mean it has to be your team's proven process, but for us, it's worked really, really well. You need to kind of tailor and adjust it to your team's DNA, the way that you want to operate, and also somewhat to your market as well. Like our inspection conversation varies widely based on what's going on in our market. And it's going to vary widely for you as well. Like we're in I think it's one of the few markets that actually have people waiving inspections like pretty much across the board. Like I've had friends buy in Arizona and Dallas and other really hot markets recently where they're still able to do home inspections, which is pretty awesome. The other pages that I talk on and cover, I cover agency roles. So I cover what does a listing agent do? What does a buyer agent do as well? And then on our team, we don't practice dual agency because of the conflict of interest. It's legal to do that in Washington. We just choose not to do it. So we will just represent the buyer or the seller, not both at the same time. That's one of the reasons I just work with buyer clients, is to avoid that conflict of interest. Again, you don't have to do that if it's your team. That's just the way that our team operates. We try to treat people that we'd want to be treated. And if I was buying a house, I wouldn't want the agent representing both parties. We also introduce them to our preferred lender and just kind of make that connection. And we offer to connect them after the meeting as well. And then we go over closing costs, what to expect on closing costs. What does the seller pay on closing costs and what does the buyer pay? In Washington, the seller pays excise tax, they pay the owner's title insurance policy, and they pay all commissions. So we name the commissions are paid for by the seller because people are always curious about that, especially first-time home buyers. Like, how much do I got to pay you? We don't have to pay me anything. The seller pays our commissions. We're totally free for you. So you have to make sure you identify and name that. And then go over the buyer's closing costs, mostly the lender fees, the appraisal fee, credit reporting fee, prepaid taxes, prepaid interest, things like that. So we set the expectations and closing costs. We talk about how to use our website. There's a little heart-shaped icon. We use a Sierra interactive site. It's awesome. It's super intuitive and easy to use for the clients. They love it. But we just share with them how to save the houses so they can save them to their account, how they can go back and view those properties. The fact that they're going to get alerts when the property closes, so they'll know how much it was listed for and how much it sold for, so they can kind of keep up on what's happening in the market. And then they And then also that when they save the homes, it goes to us directly. It doesn't just go to some random real estate agent like it would on Zillow. We also share offer variables, what will make their offer stand out as strong or what would make it come across as weak in the eyes of the seller. We just want to set very clear expectations on what makes your offer strong. And we address it right then and there. We have a whole page on this to set expectations with our clients. And then we also talk about offer review dates. In our market, offer review dates are very common. That's where a seller lists a home. They wait till a certain date to look at offers. Like it's common in our market to list on, say, a Thursday and wait till a Tuesday to look at offers. I explained to the clients that it's frustrating as a buyer to have offer review dates because the seller has no actual requirement to wait to that date to accept an offer. They can take an offer at any time if they want to. So I encourage the person to go out and look at the house as fast as possible. If they like the home, then I'll call the listing agent and see if they would take an offer early. If they will, great. I'll go ahead and write a really strong, great offer and try to get it accepted early. If they won't, then we'll wait to the review date to actually submit our offer. So our offer is not used as leverage to get other offers up higher. So those are the key pages I cover. Like again, there's 37 pages in our buyer's guide. If you go through all 37 pages, you're going to be there for 2 hours. You're going to have total information overload for people, and they're going to just completely have this glassed over look on their face. I used to go through like 12 to 15 pages with people, and it was way too much. And I discovered that if I just focused on the roadmap page that I shared with you guys, and then quickly went through all these other pages, then they really retained a lot more of the information. So this is our closing page. So after we've talked about the offer review date, we get to this page and the next steps. We're going to say, all right, Bob, so the next step is to decide to work together. Would you like me to be your agent and help you find a home? Again, I look them straight in the eyes. I don't just like look at my feet. I look them straight in the eyes and ask them this question point blank. I run to the point of highest friction. It's not a passive close. You have to show confidence. You should have shown confidence this entire time in your consultation. Now more than ever, it's important to display that confidence and ask if they're ready to move forward and hire you as their agent. If you've brought value, then they will sign it right then and there. You'll just say, okay, great. I've got some disclosures to go over with you. We'll go ahead and sign those. And then we'll get you pre-approved with Premier Mortgage and we'll start touring houses. So I did this consultation, like I probably do about 5 of these a week, and I sign around 95% of the people that I meet, if I meet them in my office. And the other day I did one with people who were buying and selling at the same time. They were totally overwhelmed by the process and just the unknowns of buying and selling simultaneously. Like it's overwhelming to be a buyer right now in most markets, but doing both at the same time is like a whole nother level. And they were just kind of left to their own devices before this meeting and didn't really know what to expect with buying a house in this current market. And as she left, she looked at me and she said, you know what? I feel so much better knowing what to expect. I feel like I fully understand the buying process and what's going to happen. Thank you. Like she just had this sincere feeling of gratitude that she shared with me. And it was an awesome feeling to me. That is bringing a ton of value to your people up front. So practice that close. That close is super important. You can put your own flavor and twist to it. I've just seen that it works really well. And again, agents that come out and train with me, they've sat in on buyer consultations, they've shouted me, new agents shouted me, and they see it in person and it just works. Again, just look them straight in the eyes and ask them if they want you to be their agent. So after you sign this person, you're going to do a couple of things. This is our process. We have a buyer signed action plan inside of Sierra Interactive. And the first thing we do is what we call the partner handoff. So we have showing partners on our team. We have partners that are assigned directly to the agent they work with. I've named who the partner is going to be multiple times in the buyer consultation so they know what to expect next. And after we're done, I will go back and go ahead and send a connection text with the buyer, their spouse, my showing partner, and myself all on one group chat. I'll just say, hey, you know, Bob and Janice, it was nice to meet you guys today. I'm really looking forward to helping you buy a home. I've gone ahead and adjusted your home search, sent you a few more properties to look at. And I've also added Destiny, my showing partner, on here. So you've got access to one of the two of us 7 days a week. Again, coming from a position of value, not that you're being replaced, not that your assistant's going to be helping this person. We always call them our partner, but that there's a benefit to having 2 of us available to you to go look at properties. We also set up the search in Sierra. We turn on instant alerts once we meet with the person, meaning that they're going to immediately get alerted as the new listings come on. We go in and adjust all the search criteria. I'm very hesitant to turn on immediate alerts until I've met with the person and signed them, just because if I don't know exactly what that person wants and needs in a property, then they're going to just get bombarded with all these useless emails and listings that don't actually match what they want. But after I've met with them, after I understand what they need, then I will go ahead and turn on the instant alerts. We'll also update our CRM. So we've got statuses that get updated. We've got tags. We also push the person into CC, which is our data analytics. And again, we apply that buyer signed action plan, which reminds us to do all of these things. If you need a copy of our buyer signed action plan, you can reach out to me and I can make it accessible to you. And it just makes sure that all of these steps get followed. And there's a very smooth and consistent process after the consultation, that all those commitments you made in that consultation are actually going to follow up and occur. We'll send the next steps email, which just again summarizes what we went over in the buyer consultation and what to expect next. It's got my showing partner's phone number on there. It's got my phone number on there, and it's got the disclosures and the agency agreement that they signed attached to it. I send that the same day that I sign the people. We also start a drip campaign inside of Sierra. When we apply the CSU MET tag, that applies an automatic drip campaign that then drips email content. These are videos I've shot for the people that explain every step in that roadmap that I just went over with you. So every one of those steps has a video, and every 3 or 4 days, they get an email from me that again, just kind of revisited those steps, because you're going over so much information in this buyer consultation, they're not going to retain everything. So you have to go over it in the buyer consultation so they know upfront about it. And then when you drip it on email, they can watch the videos as they're actually starting to experience the home search and starting to put offers on our properties. They're going to retain it better. And then my showing partners will reinforce it in person as they're actually showing houses. So that way they're getting it on 3 different levels. It's going to really saturate and sit in a lot better when you're doing that. And then we also use a note template, just called the buyer sign template. On there, it covers a couple of things. It includes the must-haves, so those are documented, the nice-to-haves, the things to avoid, the locations, the financial details, and the partner assigned. And then for those that use Sierra, we star that note so it's always easy to go back and find. We tag everybody that needs to be on there. We also add collaborators to the profile at that point, like the showing partner and the lender. So time to implement, people. We've got a few minutes left here, and I want to give you guys some action items to work on and go back and actually do. One of the things that drives me nuts about real estate conferences, I've spoken probably a dozen times at real estate conferences, and I notice that people get really excited up front, and then they go back and they don't actually implement a lot of things. So I want to change that here. I want to make sure you know exactly what you should be doing if you want to put this into your business. If you're ready to do this, if you're ready to commit to it, the first thing is make sure you're committed. That's why it's first on my list. Make sure you're committed to actually following this process no matter what. I am willing to lose a potential buyer if they're not willing to follow my proven process, because I know that person's not going to be coachable and they're not going to be successful buying a home in this market. And you have to be willing to do that same thing and really commit to it. Developing your unique buyer's guide is the next step. Again, you've seen a couple pages from mine. You can rip off and duplicate those pages, but you're going to bring a lot more value and connect the person better if it's your own flavor, if it's your own brand, it's unique to you. So go ahead and get that designed. You can put it on Upwork and get people to put the graphics together for you like we did, but write the content yourself, like write an outline for it. That's going to bring a ton of buy-in. That's going to put your own process into it. I recommend also building your appointment set and your buyer signed action plans in your CRM. So there's consistency of that process. It's going to be the exact same thing every time. That way your appointments are more consistent with showing up. And when you sign somebody, the process is going to be the same every time. I also would like to see people role play setting the appointment using that specific close that I shared earlier. Like get used to that intro for Zillow and Realtor.com leads, moving past the property to the person, and then get very comfortable with also using the close that I shared, and role play your consultation. Like it's pretty long to role play the full consultation, but if you can role play specific pages, that can be really, really helpful. And that's something that we do on our team. So a lot of information. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share on my screen, and I'm going to go ahead and take questions for a couple of minutes. So let's see here. Anonymous attendee. So just for clarification, you're saying that if you come across a Zillow lead who wants to see the house, the goal is to have a consultation with that person first, if possible. I'm absolutely saying that, yes. I want to meet the person in my office face to face, and I want to make sure that they know exactly what to expect with buying a home. I'm not just going to go open that door for that person. I'm going to be the professional. I'm going to assert control. I'm going to sit down with them and articulate that. Are these consultations on Zoom? We don't do them on Zoom if the person is in our market. We do it for out of town people, but for people that are local, and we've tested this actually, we used to offer Zoom buyer consultations. And what we discovered is if the person wasn't willing to come to our office for buyer consultation, they weren't really that motivated to get to a house and actually win a house. So like if they can't commit to that half an hour, they're going to be very difficult to get under contract, especially in the current market that we find ourselves in. So for us, it's a little bit of a test. Like, are you really committed? If you are, great, you come to our office. If you're not, then you won't, and then we won't work with you. So we like to meet face to face. It's just a lot more effective than meeting on Zoom. What I've noticed is the signed ratio on Zoom goes down quite a bit. I sign about 70% of the people I meet on Zoom, and I sign about 98% of people I meet in person. It's just harder to close people over Zoom. So if they're out of state people, we definitely do it still. Like we help a lot of California buyers that are moving up this way, and that's effective for Zoom in my opinion, and that makes total sense. Let me see some of these other questions. Holy cow, we got a bunch of them. Scott Hack, yes, we will send out the recording. Cliff Lee, awesome, buddy, good to see you. Scott, yes, I will type the close into the chat here in just a moment, or I'll email it to people. Lay Maddox, DISC is a personality profiling test. Yeah, Michael McMuller, or Michael McCullough nailed it right there. It's a personality test that allows you to identify just the traits and personality of that person so you connect better with people. Eric Hatch, you look good too, buddy. Spencer, do you have them go to open houses on their own, or how do you manage that? That's a great question. So, and I do name that in the buyer consultation. I don't like our clients going to open houses. I want them to go on private tours with us and make sure that they don't feel the pressure from the listing agent. They don't feel the pressure from other buyers. They can experience the home on their own terms. So I really don't like our clients going to open houses, and I reinforce that with my partners as well. That's a great question. Will you get a copy of this to listen again, Chad? Yes, I will share it with you for sure. Andrea Davis, thoughts on appraisal waiver? For really strong clients, I love it, but they have to really understand what they're doing. Some people are not able to do it, and they're just like financially, it'd be reckless for them to do so. They would lose their earnest money if the appraisal didn't come in a certain amount. But for other people, it makes a ton of sense. Dan, definitely waiving inspections in most contingencies if you want to buy a home. Yep, we're right there with you, buddy. Waiving inspections or repairs in ABQ. Matt Nelson, only about 20%-ish of the time we need to waive inspection, 80% of the time they don't need to. That's awesome to hear. Jeff Chubbs, it works. Yep, Jeff is a good buddy of mine. He actually is out of Boston, and he came and trained with our team for 3 full days, and he got to sit down on a couple of these buyer consultations in person with me. And got to see it firsthand. He also implemented his own buyer's guide. He went back to Boston. He signed what, Jeff, 35 buyers since he's been back there since November. Pretty awesome. Spencer, yes, I can share the buyer's guide and the drip emails. Tim, will you show a home prior to the buyer's consultation? So we leave that up to our agents. For me personally, no, I don't have the time to go just randomly show somebody a house. I want to have the person come meet with me first and make sure we're going to be a good fit to work with them. There's some agents on our team that will do one go show, which I think is okay. Go show that one house. And then if the person is unwilling to commit to a consultation at that point, then I would let them go. Tim, how are you handling out-of-state telecons? Just do Zoom for out-of-state. What do you say if they don't agree to come to the office? I just say, okay, well, what we've discovered is that when we don't sit down with you up front and really go over the home buying process, then we're not really on the same page with how this process is going to work. So I wish you the best with your home search. And if at some point you want to sit down and really get a game plan together, please give me a call. I'd be happy to do that with you. Pat, how can we get a copy of your action plans? I can probably download them and email them out to this list. Chad, looks like you aren't requiring a buyer to be pre-qualified to meeting with you. Yeah, I don't ask people to get pre-qualified before I meet with them. I think you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities if you do that. So I train my people to ask really good questions and really kind of qualify the person on the phone. So the best way to qualify the person is to unpack their current living situation and try to draw relevancy from that. So if the person is renting a home and say their monthly payment is similar to what they would have for a mortgage in your market, that makes me feel pretty good. If I understand what they do for a living and how much money they make and their credit score, all those things make me feel pretty good. So I will ask them some pretty personal questions, just like a lender would, just to kind of qualify the person myself. And if I feel good about those, then I'll go ahead and meet with them. But I think that you'll miss out on some appointments if you wait to actually get people approved before you meet with them. Jason, good to see you, buddy. Sarah, are majority of your leads SPI? I don't know what SPI means. Willie, love you, buddy. And happy belated birthday. Tamara, great content. Thank you so much. Pat, awesome. Dan, appreciate you, brother. Jeff Warner, do you pre-screen any credit or financing issues before scheduling consultation? I just talked about that. Let me know if you have any more questions on that. Terry, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Chad, awesome. And Jeff, can you email out the one page used for the bio consultations. Yes, I'm happy to do that. I will put together an email to everybody and blast it out here in the next day or two. So we're out of time for today. Tara, awesome. Thanks so much. It was great to hang out with all of you guys. I will send this out. Oh, I see. Our majority of your leads SPI, sphere of influence. No, they're not. So 34% of our business was sphere last year. So we've only been in business for 5 years. We started in 2017. So we're just getting people that we sold houses to as buyers now listing with us. And our sphere has grown for sure, but about 34% of our business was PCSOI last year, and the rest was paid business. So pay-per-click, realtor.com, Zillows, things like that. And that's where a lot of this really comes into. Joe, shiny new agent here. Awesome. Love new agents. Yes, I will send out the templates. Awesome. Cool. We are all on the same page, guys. I will send out emails, and it was great to hang out with all of you guys, and I hope you crush it and have a great rest of your day.